Hello, dear leader. My name is Samuel Eyim, Chief Leadership Coach at the Center for Transformational Leadership in Africa, CTL Africa. And I have an important invitation for you. Why are some nations developed and thriving, while others are underdeveloped and struggling? Why are some businesses flourishing and others languishing? Why are some churches growing and others dying? These are important questions for leaders. So are you a leader? At what level are you leading? What impact are you making? What is your understanding and concept of leadership? The way you think about leadership is the way you do leadership. And as John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership is the cause, all others are the effect. So, at the Center for Transformational Leadership, we've created this program to help you transform your understanding of leadership. This program is going to be based on John C. Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. As a John C. Maxwell certified coach, I'm going to walk you through these laws, and we're going to give you exercises and activities around these laws to help install a new transforming concept of leadership for you. This will change the way you do leadership completely. So I invite you to check our website and our social media pages and to register for the Leadership Mindset and Asset program. This program is on 2 levels. The first level is understanding the laws of leadership, where we are going to walk you through the laws of leadership in 3 to 5 days. And this will give you the foundations of leadership. The second level is walking the laws of leadership. Here, we take you through a 15-week journey through the laws of leadership. Every week, you will have opportunity to study one law, apply the law throughout the week, meditate upon it, do the exercises, and regroup with other like-minded people who are learning the laws of leadership, exchange ideas, and share your lessons. So do not miss this opportunity. Register now for the Leadership Mindset and Asset program. We spend a lot of time developing our professions, but we don't spend time developing ourselves. Look, as a leader, as a professional, you have to grow. You have to grow yourself. And to be able to grow yourself, you need to know yourself. A lot of us are not achieving the maximum we can achieve because we have not invested in our personal growth. So we are bringing you this special studies based on John C. Maxwell's book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And we're going to just spend time with you and help you go through the principles that you need to be able to grow your person, to become a better person. Because if you become a better person, you become a better leader, become a better father, become a better professional. Do not miss this opportunity, as the masterclass is going to be very practical and discussional. It is going to be a limited number of people. So please register now to be part of the program.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Leadership Platform. My name is Samuel Ayim, and I'm excited to be with you every Saturday evening because on this platform, we learn, we share, we grow. That is the purpose of this platform, is to bring you great leaders who are accomplished in their own right and who have the experience and the expertise to share on the subjects that we bring to you. Compassionate people ask for what they need. They say no when they need to, and when they say yes, they mean it. They are compassionate because their boundaries keep them out of resentment. Brené Brown says so. This evening, we are going to discuss a very important subject, still under our general theme of women in leadership. We've done about 5 weeks or so of various series of lessons to encourage our sisters in leadership and to share different dimensions of the things that they need to be aware of. And this evening, we continue those discussions and we are going to talk about boundaries. Now, do you feel sometimes that you have to say no, or sometimes you feel you have to say yes to everything, and later on you go back and you feel like, I shouldn't have said yes, or I should have stood my ground? Should I draw the line? Where do you draw the line when you have to deal with people and when you are leading people? Should you just open up everything? What do you have to say to who and at what point? Who do you have to allow into your personal space and at what cost? Now, these are very important lessons or questions that all leaders ask. But more important for leadership is women in leadership because of the social construct of the place of a woman and what she can do and what she cannot do, and so on and so forth. The expectations of women and of men seem to be different, even though they may all be leading. And so we want this evening to share a bit on that. So we encourage you to invite your friends. We encourage you to invite your colleagues, your bosses, your sisters, and your buddies to join, because we're going to have a very exciting time together. And I want you to introduce yourself. If you are connected at this point, let us know who you are and where you are joining from. And at this moment, I can see Sarah Mbequin, and she's saying good evening to everyone. So go ahead if you're connected and share where your name and where you are connecting from. And we are always glad to welcome you and to introduce you to the world. So this evening, I'm also excited because I have one of my favorite persons to come and discuss with us this subject. And the person going to talk to us has over 20 years of experience in human resource administration in an international organization. So she's seen it all. She's seen the different dynamics, the different types of leaders at different levels to the highest level. And she has many, many, many years of extensive experience as a trainer in human resources administration systems in about 10 countries in Africa. So it's not just one country experience, it's a multi-country experience in human resources. And in this position, she has seen it all. And she's been teaching also around this area. In addition, she is a senior lecturer in family life education in the College of Counseling and Psychology. So this is the right person to share with us how to handle your emotions and how to relate with others. She is a resource person and speaker at various workshops and conferences and seminars. She is a presidential member of the American Association of Christian Counselors, a member of the International Christian Coaches Association, a member of the Psychology Council of Ghana, and is a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Christian Counselors. She is also a John C. certified coach. And our speaker this evening, Dr. Anani, has spoken on this platform before. So those of you who've been around for some time are very, very familiar with Dr. Mary Anani. And on that note, it is my pleasure, my esteemed pleasure, to invite my friend and my sister, Dr. Mary Anani, to the leadership platform. Doc, you are welcome.
Coach Aim, nice to be here with you once again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is always our pleasure. It's always our pleasure to have you. So you are very welcome, and we will just give you the space. Dr. Anani is going to share with us for about 40 minutes. And after that, there will be room for questions and answers. And as I tell you, the Q&A and the discussion and sharing session, that's where the meat is. So stay with us till the end. We're here from now till 8:30, and we're going to share a lot and a lot and a lot. And so at this point, I would just leave the stage to Dr. Anani, and I'll come back and have a bit more chat with Dr. Anani as we go along. Doc, the stage is yours.
Thanks to all our viewers and our listeners. Thanks for making time to be with us once again on this leadership platform. So, as Coach Sam has already introduced the topic, that is managing personal and other boundaries as women leaders. And it's a topic that is as important as it is interesting because of the sociocultural milieu where we find ourselves as women leaders, and because of different types of perceptions that people have when it comes to dealing with women leaders. And also our own personality, the kind of temperament we have, the kind of experiences we have, the upbringing we have, the kind of exposure or education that we have, can all affect how we see and use boundaries. So when we talk about boundaries, it's just about the lines we draw around our space in interacting with other people, so that in our interactions, we feel comfortable, we feel safe, we have this sense of security where we don't feel threatened and we don't feel like people are doing things that we are not comfortable with or which we don't welcome. And the thing about boundaries is that we need to communicate them for them to be meaningful. Because if you do not communicate the boundaries, nobody knows about it. And so your boundaries depend on you. How much space you want to give to people in their interaction with you, and how much space you want to use when interacting with other people. So it's two ways: how much we welcome people into our space and how much we are prepared to go into the space of other people, all in our interactions with them. And so it's very important that we understand that boundaries are a necessary part of our interactions with people at various levels. It can be at the corporate level, at the societal level, at the family level, at the individual level, at the group level, team level, whatever. Anywhere that there is interaction concerning us, our boundaries help us protect ourselves emotionally, mentally, spiritually, socially, financially, and all that. And so it's very important that we understand what these boundaries are that we determine. And so boundaries don't mean the same thing to all people. We define our boundaries depending on what we want to achieve. And so the boundaries that we set may not be typical of every woman leader because the challenges we face are different. What we are looking for is different. Our goals are different, and so on and so forth. And so in our part of the world, when it comes to women leaders, we face many challenges in the workplace because of where we happen to find ourselves. And so we face challenges of gender bias, for instance. And we also face systemic barriers because of where we are. So systemic barriers can make it difficult for us to thrive apart from the gender bias. The gender bias is a bit more pronounced in our part of the world where we have a lot of gender stereotyping. And even when people are talking to us, you know, we can't often have conversations with people, or people cannot refer to us as leaders without referring first to us as women. How can a woman do this? Can you imagine that this is a woman and this is what she's doing? So certain things that are considered normal where men are concerned, when women leaders do them, it becomes a problem. But we, knowing what we want, can always determine where the boundaries are. And so it's important. And without clear boundaries, challenges can become overwhelming. And this can lead us to burnout, stress, and health problems. For instance, if we have a challenge with saying no to protect our space, to protect our time, to protect our health and well-being, and we think that we need to prove ourselves by taking on more than we can manage, or by taking on a lot in order to prove a point, at the end of the day, it can lead to a lot of things. And so, as a woman leader, setting boundaries is essential, first for our well-being, second for our productivity, and thirdly for our success. Because without clearly defined boundaries, it becomes difficult to determine what exactly we want and what exactly we are doing. And so the boundaries help us make a statement about our expectations, our goals, our aims, and aspirations. And whilst doing this, we send clear signals as to how far we want to go with people, how far we'll accept to go with them, and how far we'll allow them to go with us. And so boundaries help us to define our limits. It also helps us to protect our time and energy. And so as we define our boundaries, it helps us to prioritize our goals and responsibilities effectively. So for instance, in a part of the world where time means very little to some people or to a lot of people, protecting our boundaries where time is concerned and avoiding frustration and the attendant stress is always good for us to be in control. First of all, respecting time ourselves and communicating same to others. And so that if somebody is supposed to meet us at a given time, we've agreed to have a meeting with that person or with those people. And then we need to make it very clear that if they are not in time or on time, we may be prepared to wait for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, if they are not there, we could go on to do other things. And so when this is clearly spelled out, then we avoid that frustration where we have to suffer in silence, get stressed out for nothing. Because in Ghana, for instance, when you ask people, oh, so when is the meeting? They can give a wide range, 7, 7:38. You know, people can give that kind of time. What does that mean? And so when we tell them, I'm sorry, for me, a time range of 1 hour is unacceptable. Shall we say between 7 and 7:10? And so that it will be good if you turn up by 7. After 7:10, I'm sorry, I can't wait. You know, this is clearly defining your boundary of time. And let the person know that if it goes beyond a certain time, I have other things lined up, so I'm not able to wait. But if we are going to do the usual thing that we do, where things that are supposed to be formal become informal because we are forever waiting for somebody and they keep calling and they are like, oh, I'll be there in the next 5 minutes. 5 minutes turns to 10 minutes. 10 minutes turns to 20 minutes. And we are just waiting. We are subjected to that kind of treatment if we don't have clearly defined boundaries. And so sometimes we let the people know that if, for instance, we are supposed to start a meeting at 7 and end at 7:40. Now, if you keep me waiting and you come in, let's say 10 minutes late, our meeting will still end at 7:40 because after 7:40, I'm going on to other things. So it's clearly defining your boundary. And so the person knows that even if I come in late, you know, the time I have for this discussion, the time I have for this interaction is limited and is going to end at the scheduled end time. And so the interesting thing is that when you are a woman leader and you insist on such things and you clearly define such boundaries and you are assertive, you hear people saying, oh, she's too difficult. As for her, she's too rigid. She's too strict. At the end of the day, you are looking at you. What makes you avoid frustration? What makes you avoid other people wasting your time? What makes you able to prioritize, have a focus, be able to concentrate and achieve the things that you want to achieve? Because the thing is, if you allow people, they will run your life for you. And so setting boundaries helps us to prioritize, to pursue our goals and responsibilities effectively. And so as women leaders, we should not think too much of what other people would think of the fact that we are setting boundaries. The question should be, is it healthy? Does it help me? Is it good for what I want to do, or how I want people to see me, or how I want people to interact with me? So it shouldn't be too much about bending to please other people. Yes, once in a while we show a bit of flexibility, but it shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be the norm. We should have our own values and principles, which will help us clearly define what kind of boundaries that we want. And so setting boundaries is especially important for women leaders, and they are expected to show professional competence and also fulfill the societal expectation of caregiving and nurturing. And so we have our domestic roles as women, we have our corporate roles, we have our societal roles, and so on and so forth. So in order not to blur these roles, that is why our boundaries should be clear and distinct. Otherwise, when are we going to be the caregivers and the people who are nurturing? And when are we going to be that corporate leader? It comes with clearly defining the boundaries so that we don't confuse ourselves and others. And so when we are playing the domestic role, we may have a different set of boundaries. And when we are in the corporate space, we may have a different set of boundaries. All these are geared towards helping us to do the things we want to do in a way that is convenient, that is comfortable, that is acceptable and helpful to us, without looking over our shoulders or without trying to please other people other than ourselves. And we should always also remember that when we set boundaries, for them to be effective, we need to be clear and assertive in our communication. And so if, for instance, we feel that we are taking on too much, or people are taking it for granted, that we are there to do it, that whatever lands on our desk, we will do. Whatever responsibility lands on our lap, we are ready to execute and all that. And so we need to be clear and assertive. Clear, we define the boundary in unambiguous terms. And then assertive, we say it with the seriousness and the self-conviction that we can master. Not wavering in stating what those boundaries are. For instance, one of the things that women leaders often has to contend with is how people see and address them. So for me, the boundary includes how you allow people to address you, particularly in the corporate space. Because sometimes, I normally give this example where I remember there was a time I took a family member to the hospital on an emergency. And then somebody walked to this female staff and told her that the doctor also was calling her. So she went and came back and she was like, Madam, can you imagine? In this hospital, and I'm talking about a big hospital, I'm not going to name which hospital. He said, in this hospital, every female that people see is supposed to be a nurse, and every male that people see is supposed to be a doctor. So it was actually a male nurse who assumed that that was a doctor. The female was another nurse that he could assign duties to. So it was when she went close and they spoke that she said, no, I am not a nurse, I am this. But it tells us what pertains in our society. And I normally give this example of when you have, say, a couple who are both in the legal profession, and somebody comes and says, I want to speak to lawyer. Invariably, they are talking about the man and not the woman. And it happens in many places. And so it's up to us to determine how we are addressed. Some people feel that a woman leader should automatically be addressed by her first name without seeking her consent. And first names go with the use of first names go with a certain kind of familiarity. And so is it in the just because of modernity, without you having told people how to address you, that they take the liberty of addressing you by your first name. If it's not acceptable to you as a woman leader, it is good to speak up and say, no, I prefer you address me as so and so. Otherwise, people will just take it for granted and address you the way they feel they must address you. And most of the time, they don't do the same to male leaders. It is just a social cultural thing. You know, people just assume. And so we have to be that assertive and clear. From the beginning, people may find it difficult to accept it, especially because it's a woman that is saying it. But once you understand and you know which boundaries you want to define, I'll encourage you to go ahead and insist on those boundaries being observed, rather than bear that feeling of being upset, that feeling of being disrespected, that feeling of not being accorded the honor and all that. Because to avoid that feeling that can affect you emotionally, it's always good to speak up and let people know that this is what is acceptable to me, this is not acceptable to me. And once we clarify our boundaries, we must realize that we need to be willing to be advocates for the needs of other people as well. Because being a woman in leadership gives you that advantage of being an advocate. Because normally, people who are not in leadership may not have that authority to clearly state and communicate their boundaries. And so being a woman leader means that it is not only our boundaries that we are dealing with, but we also become advocates for other women, because often in our part of the world, it is the woman who is at the vulnerable side of the equation. So it's important for us to always see ourselves as advocates, so that we are not pursuing only our interests, but the interests of other women as well, who may be playing various roles. And so if somebody is referring to what another person has done to them, whether they are on the same level or not, and typically hear people say, can you imagine a woman talking to me this way? I mean, for me, it's a no-no. If somebody talks in a way that is not right, being a man or a woman is not the issue. The way they spoke, was it right? Was it acceptable? Was it respectful? And so this thing about, can you imagine this woman talking to me this way? You know, as a woman leader, we have the duty to correct this kind of thing. And then the other thing that I think we are getting wrong as a people, particularly in our part of the world, where we equate being a woman with weakness. And so you hear people typically say that, and all the men had become women. I mean, what do you mean by that kind of a statement? If people are not showing courage, it's better to say exactly what you mean. That maybe the men's courage has deserted them, or the men have become timid, or the men have become too compliant, or whatever we want to use to describe what we are talking about. Why do we seek refuge in that expression that the men have become women? I am one of those who will protest at such a statement and correct you and tell you that no, it is not right. Because being a woman, and especially a woman leader, is not synonymous with weakness. And so we cannot use this kind of language, particularly in the corporate space, and expect that it's okay. And so we should see ourselves as advocates when it comes to dealing with issues of boundaries. We need to demonstrate healthy boundary in our behaviors as women leaders, because demonstrating a healthy boundary mentality can ultimately impact the culture of our organization and help to remove those unhealthy biases, the harassment, and it will go to benefit the whole team. And this goes with the role of advocacy, as I mentioned earlier. And so it's important for us to understand that boundaries need to be healthy, and our behaviors should show having this kind of healthy boundaries mindset, because our boundaries could be too rigid, and having boundaries that are too rigid make it impossible or difficult for people to interact with us productively. At the same time, when the boundaries are porous also, it's susceptible to abuse, and it makes people do whatever they feel like doing with us and to us. And so we should set the boundaries that are healthy. Boundaries that are healthy should show in our behavior. And when we are uncomfortable with something, we need to show it. For instance, there are some people whose language is not refined, it's not polished. And so when we are dealing with people like this, sometimes they even forget that they are dealing with women. They can talk in very profane terms or terms that are not acceptable for a woman. It could be a joke, but you see that the moment you laugh at such a joke, it's a sign that you are okay with it. And so the person is going to go on and crack more of such jokes, mostly maybe at your expense, or even at the expense of other women. So what kind of behavior do we show at things, tendencies, attitudes, language, and behavior that we find unacceptable? Because for us, it doesn't constitute the observance of a healthy boundary. And so the fact that somebody has decided that this is a joke doesn't mean we should laugh at it. We feel the person is crossing the boundary. And so sometimes our behavior sends signals, attitude sends signals. And so we should be careful what kind of signals we are sending to people to make them decide to violate our boundaries. And so in setting healthy boundaries, we must realize that we need to value our own opinion. When we value our own opinions, it helps us convey healthy boundaries. We should not be intimidated about the kind of opinion we have. We should be sure and show certainty that yes, this is the opinion I hold, and these are the reasons for the opinion. It's a way of letting people know that you have a mind of your own. You are not a pushover. You cannot be pushed around. Then we should also show that we don't compromise our values for others. If it's not right by me, if I don't find it respectful, if I don't find it acceptable, that's exactly what it is. And so I will not compromise for you because it is A or B. And so we should not compromise our values for others. And we should be consistent about that. Because the moment people begin to see variations, depending on who we are dealing with, they can take advantage. And it becomes difficult for us to insist on those boundaries. And then as part of the healthy boundaries that we draw, we share our personal information. We share personal information in an appropriate way. Because sometimes in sharing personal information, if we divulge too much, if we move into areas that are private, we are violating our own boundaries. We are letting out too much. And people will begin to think that they are welcome to violate our space. And so we should be careful how we share personal information and to what extent we want to share that information with whoever we are dealing with. And like I said, it's always very important for us to show consistency and not be ambiguous when it comes to our boundaries. As a sign of healthy personal boundaries, the woman leader knows her personal wants and needs and can communicate them clearly. And so we shouldn't just leave it. If we are asked about our preference for something, if we are asked about how we want something to go, we should be bold enough to mention exactly what we want, to mention exactly the way we want to be talked to state clearly how we want to be addressed, to state clearly the kind of language we don't want, to state clearly the kind of attitude that is uncomfortable to us. It's always important that from time to time we situate things in the context of boundaries and determine what is comfortable and what is not comfortable, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, so that we can convey these clearly. And in setting healthy boundaries, it means that we also accept when others say no to us. Because as I said from the beginning, boundaries don't have to do with only us, but it has to do with other people also. So that as we determine how much space to give to people when they are interacting with us, we should also determine how much space we think we can take when we are interacting with other people, so that we also don't go too much into their space. And so everyone has the right to say no when saying no is reasonable. When saying no is meant to protect their space and not as a sign of disrespect. When saying no is stating their preference, what they want, how they feel. And so we should be respectful of the boundaries of others also. And then learning to set boundaries can be a transformative process. It enables women leaders to achieve greater clarity, to achieve greater focus and success in both their personal and professional lives. Because when boundaries are clearly set and stated, like I said from the beginning, it helps us to protect ourselves emotionally, physically, mentally, and everything, spiritually and all, so that we are not there for people to treat anyhow because they think we are women leaders who don't know what we are about. And clearly setting and communicating and insisting on boundaries is an ongoing process. It requires self-awareness, it requires self-care and effective communication. Self-awareness, because then we understand what is acceptable to us, what makes us feel good and comfortable emotionally, physically, spiritually, socially, and all that. Self-care, so that we have in mind the thought of what is good for us, what promotes our health and well-being, what makes us comfortable and what makes us uncomfortable. And all these are brought together by effective communication skills. And so normally when we want to communicate boundaries, we need to be sure of exactly what we want to say. We need to be sure of exactly the kind of message we want to convey. we want to be sure of exactly what we want the other person to know and understand. And so it comes with practice and support. And we have a duty as women leaders to support one another. Our personalities differ, our temperaments differ, our outlooks differ. Some people can be more assertive than others. And so the role of advocacy should not be lost on us. We should look out to support other women leaders, because when we do that, that is what will help us change the bias, and it will help us overcome the challenges of boundary setting and achieve greater success and well-being in our careers, so that we get rid or minimize the secret frustration, the emotional stress as a result of the pain, the anger that we may endure because of people's attitude towards us, people's treatment of us, and all that. It's always important that we think first of what makes us thrive, what makes us comfortable, what makes us feel good, what makes us productive, what helps us to perform optimally. And so it's important. And so these are the areas that I want us to think of, because if we don't uh, think about our goals, we don't think about our boundaries, we don't think of how best to communicate those boundaries, let people know exactly what we want, how much we want them to, how close we want them to come, or how much a day we want them to be, and so on and so forth. If we don't do that, and we have this secret frustration that affects us emotionally and all that, it will even affect the passion, the drive, the interest that we have for the work. And once we don't have the drive, we don't have the interest, we don't have the passion, it becomes boring. It affects us emotionally, and it can contribute to burnout, because then we will be forcing ourselves to do the things that we don't want to do. If we find it difficult to say no to people, and we just go on and on and on, they will begin to think that we are there for their use. And as the saying goes, that people that we normally will get, we normally will create what we allow. And we normally will get what we create. And so what we don't want to create, we should not allow. And so in setting the boundaries, we need to ask ourselves, what exactly is it that I want to create? Then that is what I'm going to allow, because I will get what I have allowed, and people will always want to repeat behaviors that they think are acceptable to us. So setting boundaries is important for our benefit, for our protection, for our holistic well-being, so that we'll be fulfilled in the domestic space, in the social space, in the corporate space, in the spiritual space, in the cultural space, wherever we find ourselves. And so uh, I, I hope that this has been helpful to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to enter into, I'm going to have a close up with Dr. Anani, and to tease out her own personal life a bit and to see how she's been able to handle these things closely. But we'll take a short break, a quick one. Don't go. Your question, bring your questions, submit your questions. Also, share with us what you learned. What are your takeaway? What one thing are you going to do after you have heard all that doctor has shared with us, what one thing are you going to take away and to practice and to act upon? I believe the men also have taken their share. It's not only the women. I have a lot of notes. I have my notes here. I'm going to share also my learnings. So we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and also acknowledge those who are in the house.
Hello, dear leader. My name is Samuel Eyim, Chief Leadership Coach at the Center for Transformational Leadership in Africa, CTL Africa. And I have an important invitation for you. Why are some nations developed and thriving, while others are underdeveloped and struggling? Why are some businesses flourishing and others languishing? Why are some churches growing and others dying? These are important questions for leaders. So are you a leader? At what level are you leading? What impact are you making? What is your understanding and concept of leadership? The way you think about leadership is the way you do leadership. And as John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership is the cause, all others are the effect. So, at the Center for Transformational Leadership, we've created this program to help you transform your understanding of leadership. This program is going to be based on John C. Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. As a John C. Maxwell certified coach, I'm going to walk you through these laws, and we're going to give you exercises and activities around these laws to help install a new transforming concept of leadership for you. This will change the way you do leadership completely. So I invite you to check our website and our social media pages and to register for the Leadership Mindset and Asset program. This program is on 2 levels. The first level is understanding the laws of leadership, where we are going to walk you through the laws of leadership in 3 to 5 days. And this will give you the foundations of leadership. The second level is walking the laws of leadership. Here, we take you through a 15-week journey through the laws of leadership. Every week, you will have opportunity to study one law, apply the law throughout the week, meditate upon it, do the exercises, and regroup with other like-minded people who are learning the laws of leadership, exchange ideas, and share your lessons. So do not miss this opportunity. Register now for the Leadership Mindset and Asset program.
Thank you so much for staying with us, and welcome again to the leadership platform. We encourage you to check our pages and to sign up for these ongoing programs. On the growth journey, 2 cohorts are running at the same time, cohort 6 and 7, but cohort 6 is going to finish in the next 2 weeks. So those of you who are interested in signing up for cohort 8, because some people wanted to sign up, but there was no room. So we want to encourage you to quickly sign up, go to our links and register for cohort 8, which is going to start in 3 weeks. The cohort 6 will finish in 2 weeks' time, and the following week we will start the next cohort. So you have the next 2 to 3 weeks to bring your friends, to ask them to sign for the Growth Journey program. The Laws of Leadership program is open. You can continue to register now, and we would get you on board. We are also at this time preparing for Live to Lead. And I believe those of you on this call who have been coming to Live to Lead for the last 7 years, you can't wait to have Live to Lead brought to you. The date is October 6th. And we want you to note the date. First Friday of October, October 6th. We are calling the first week of October the Leadership Week. We want you to get ready, prepare, start saving around the Live to Lead program, which we're going to bring to you. You're going to hear more about it in the weeks coming. So you are all invited. For now, I can see so many people around the table. I can see Reverend Ebenezer Alabi is here. Fred Asare is here. Lydia Nutifafa Owusu is here from Accra. I have Dennis Ahe is also here. He says, good evening. I have Nala Tele Late from Bawe here. Fred Asare is from Gomuafete. William Dafoe is here from Tema. Conrad Kakraba says a very important topic. All right. Selassie Nupe Adam is here from Accra. Teresa Sarikuma says, good evening to everyone. Doris Atta is also here. Her Ladyship, Cynthia Martinson, says, good evening. We see you, Cynthia. And Mami Efua Atta says, hello to everybody. We have Hawa Lambon watching from Sunyani. Hawa, thank you so much. We have Kwame JB. Good evening from London. Kwame, thank you for joining. We have Mami. Susie is here. This is very glad to be here. We want to see if you have any questions so that I can throw them up to Dr. Anani. Her Ladyship says, I doff my hat to you, Madam. Thank you so much. Reverend Ebenezer Alabi says, that is the point, ma. If you allow people, they will run your life for you. Yes. Lakwe says, thanks for this great submission. As a woman leader in this corporate world, a wife and mother, what are some of the common boundaries to keep at the home to maintain a good balance between work and life? So, Doc, that's the first question I want you to note from Lakwe. As a corporate leader and a wife and a mother, what are some of the common boundaries to keep at home to maintain a good balance between work and life? Felicia Mensah says, I have learned to be able to set my boundaries and communicate them explicitly. All right. And her Ladyship again says, I have learned not to compromise my values and to value my own opinion. Great. I have Olivia Okine says, many thanks for all the key values shared, Dr. Anane, as I usually share with many within work and church ministry spaces to handle issues spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially, and every XXX way. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you once again. And Fleshy Me, Esi Amwafo from Bachona is also here. All right, so many people here. We're going to go into Dr. Anani to discuss. So let me have your questions. Henry Amwate is here. He says, good evening. I'm late, but I know I will surely get my share. All right, that's true. Gertrude and Chibo Siakon says hello. And Mauku Mensa Nyatepe is here with us. All right. So now let me just bring Doctor on board. And before I go to my own plenty questions I have for Doctor, and I want to thank you, Doctor, so much. Laqua's question is important. We have a corporate leader, you have a mother, you are a wife. So she wants to know what are the some of the boundaries she can share at home so that she can have a work-life balance. So maybe you should start with that, and then we'll come back to your own stories.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think it's a very important question that has come up because in this day and age, the mistake that many women leaders make is work is carried from the corporate space to the domestic space. And
Mhm,
so sometimes we don't demarcate clearly that
mhm,
aspects of being a career person or a corporate person and also the domestic rules. Uh, we need to clearly define that. And so that once we get home, family time is family time. We do not use family time in pursuit of corporate goals and objectives. And so that should clearly be made. The fact that you are CEO, MD, chief partner, whatever, team leader, and all those things, especially when you have young children, those things don't mean anything to them. At home, you are a mom, you are a wife, you are an auntie, a big sister, a younger sister, a daughter, or whatever. And so we we should switch when we get home. So the first thing that I will talk about at home is to respect the rights of other family members to your time in the domestic space. Because when we carry over, it's difficult to give ourselves and make ourselves accessible to the family. But the family should have access to us. And so we should be able to let down our hair when we get home. We should be able to smile, we should be able to laugh. We should be able to be ourselves. We should be able to be vulnerable and allow the same children or adults that we are dealing with. And so that rigidity or that clearly defined boundaries that we have in the office or in the corporate space is for us to be able to do our work in a manner that makes us comfortable, that makes us happy, that makes us fulfilled. So those boundaries become some safeguards that we put in there so that we have a comfortable space to work in. Once we get home, uh, the boundaries I will insist on is mutual respect in speech, in our expectations, in the way we treat others, because those boundaries are very important. Mutual respect, the boundaries of selflessness, where we know that as family we are there to support one another to thrive. And so we are looking out for opportunities to make the other person happy. So once it's clearly stated about mutual respect, about uh, mutual support, and looking out for the well-being of others in a non-selfish manner, where we are more concerned about the other person thriving and being happy at home. And so, yes, the boundaries are more relaxed, but still there are boundaries. Because the fact that we are in the domestic space doesn't mean that anything goes. Children should know that they are children in the domestic space, and adults should understand that they are adults. There should clearly be a chain of command that is affectionate and firm at the same time. And so that our relationship with one another is not chaotic. It's not chaotic. At the same time, it is not too rigid. It doesn't stifle us. And so these are my initial comments, the kind of language we use. We should
Yeah.
insist on language that is sanitized. We should
Mm-hmm.
insist on language that is respectful. We should insist on language that is dignified to ourselves and to the other person. And then another boundary that we should look at is in terms of what is acceptable in the house and what is not acceptable. And so, for instance, the fact that we have access to watch telly, the fact that we have access to surf the net at that young age, doesn't mean that it's a blank check. That's why I made the point that we should know who is a child and who is an adult. And so children should understand that yes, they are loved, uh, their welfare, their happiness, their well-being is of concern. But there are certain things that are expected of them also. So responsible behavior, the boundaries should clearly be drawn for responsible behavior by both children and adults. So like I said, it's a bit different in the domestic environment, but there are boundaries.
Good. There are boundaries. Now, let me just follow up from there, especially for professional women who have lots of demand in their corporate life and their wives also. And when they come home, you have a husband who is expecting you to come and do house chores and so forth. And they probably don't have so much. They will probably come early and you have a lot of work. And so, how do you deal with that? That's number one. Number two, we have also some other corporate uh, women who probably are financially stronger than their husbands. And some of them are even taking care of the house, paying school fees, doing all sort of things. And yet, still the man expects them to also do what we call traditional wife duties at home and so forth, irrespective of the respective financial strength. These things can create some tensions also at home. So since Laque's question is about the home, I wanted you to probably throw a bit more light on how we can organize the boundaries around these areas, house duties and responsibilities, financial duties and responsibilities between husband, wife, children, and all the things. How can a professional woman keep boundaries and keep her head emotionally sane?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, it's quite an issue that comes up often. And sometimes, whilst the woman leader has successfully set up boundaries in the corporate space to give her that comfort and the healthy environment to thrive, same cannot be said of the domestic space and certain cases. And I know it's it's really a challenge. The first thing I'll say about that, like I alluded to earlier, that people will do what we train them to do. Secondly, we create what we allow,
Mm.
and we get what we create. And so right from the beginning of the domestic relationship, when the parental coalition came together, what kind of communication did we have? What boundaries were spelled out? It's important. If from the beginning we chose to go very traditional meaning that the woman takes care of the household chores, she cooks, she cleans, she does all those traditionally feminine things. And the man gets used to that kind of treatment and begins to expect that that is how it should go. And so that when the career is growing, the children are coming, they require attention and all that. Do we go back and re-examine the boundaries? Because in the presentation, I made the point that was an ongoing thing. We go back and look at the boundaries and say, look, at this phase of this relationship, I think I need help to do A, B, and C. If it is that stereotypical setup, traditional setup, where even society frowns on certain rules by the man, is it possible that we bring in additional hands to help us? Maybe relatives that we know we can rely on to give us some respite by taking up certain of the responsibilities. And of course, when that happens, it means that that person comes under our care. We begin to owe them some obligations. That's why we need to redefine the boundaries. We need to relook at the boundaries from time to time. The important thing is not to keep quiet. The important thing is to look at how things are affecting you, the way they are going. Because there are some people who will look at it and say, no, I think my wife is taking on too much. I think she's getting tired. I think I can help in this way. And so then there can be that communication where if the husband is willing, he takes up some of the rules, particularly concerning the children, maybe their homework, their feeding, and so on and so forth. Or somebody else is brought in to take care of those relieving duties. And so once that is done, the woman leader has a bit of space, even though she's not as home as a woman leader. But because her life is a continuum, she's able to experience that work-life balance, where she knows that when she comes home, she's part of the domestic space, and she contributes by her very presence and the roles that she plays to make the domestic space comfortable and enjoyable for everyone, because we all have our roles to play. But where no such support is forthcoming, and there is the insistence that you are the woman, you are the wife, you need to be able to cope. Our mothers had 10 children. They could go to the farm, come back and cook, wash their things and all that, and they were not complaining. So why are you complaining? You know, sometimes we hear things like that. And so it's important that right from the word go, we know the kind of person we are getting involved with. We know what their values and principles are. We know their predisposition, if they are the supportive and helpful type, if they are the caring type, or they are the types who say that, look, I am the man, and we are in Ghana, we are Africans. This is how we do it. And so it's a bit of having boundaries right from the beginning, looking at those boundaries from time to time, looking at what is best for you. Remember, I spoke about being selfless. And so even in that case, you're not looking at it in a selfish manner, but you're looking at it realistically. Is this helpful? If I am emotionally drained, if I'm physically drained, if I'm mentally drained because I have too much, what is the effect on my own health? What is the effect on the health of the family? What is the effect on the family environment and all that? So it's something that we need to look at
And discuss.
realistically, selflessly, uh, in a way that is aimed at helping each one of us thrive. So that it's not so much about who we are, but what is best for all of us. But by all means, speak, communicate clearly, assertively, and what you don't want to create, don't accept from the beginning. Because, like I
Wonderful.
said, people
Now,
will train, will do what we train them to do. Thank you.
thank you, Doc. Now, where you the scenario where the husband is traditional and is insisting the woman, no matter what, should keep to the traditional rules. And if the woman's income is also better than the man, can she also now say, okay, me too, I'm insisting on traditional African rules. I keep my money, you take care of all the financial responsibilities in the house? How about that? What advice will you give?
Yeah, the financial roles also, sorry, I forgot to touch on that earlier. The financial roles also are important. That also comes as part of our communication right from the beginning. Because normally when I'm dealing with up and coming couples, I always talk about having a financial arrangement because the fact that you are in love is not enough. What kind of financial system do you want to run in the home? And so it doesn't matter who is taking more or who is taking less. At the end of the day, the question is what is best for us? What can we cope with? What best serves our interest? And so, if, for instance, we shared the rules in the home uh, and we are taking care of our finances, we are taking care of our needs from our collective efforts, whatever the arrangement is, whether we are contributing into a pool, whether we are sharing the responsibilities, whether we put everything together in a joint account sort of way. It's a decision for us to take. And so where the woman is earning more, it's not an excuse for her to be unreasonable. Because it's very, very important that at the end of the day, whatever atmosphere we create in the domestic space will determine the kind of relationship that we have. And so discussion right from the beginning is very important. And what we do from the beginning is important. We don't just leave things to chance. Even relationships thrive on plans. They thrive on goals. They thrive on objectives and all that. So we should have all these things in place. That temptation to flex, to show the other person that you have more than them is not the answer. The answer is in uh, having the boundaries well defined right from the beginning and respecting them. Now, where the other person is proving adamant and they don't care, it's like you are the woman, this is your job. Then the issue of self-care and self-protection comes in. And so then we can agree on other arrangements that take the burden off us. And so, for instance, if you are not willing to help, and yet you are the type who comes from a place where you have to eat fufu every day, for instance, then we clearly have to make some adjustments. So that maybe instead of enjoying your fufu every day, it becomes a once in a week thing. Or instead of the pounding, we settle for the powder, and so on and so forth. So it is not just about your duties as a wife, what is healthy for you, what is helpful for you. Because at the end of the day, don't forget, when in all this you take on too much and you break down, the family will still suffer. And so we should always be assertive enough to communicate exactly what we feel and what we think will be helpful. And no matter how adamant the person is, we could always adjust. We could do bulk cooking. We could have people help us with that, other certain things from outside, and so on and so forth. So it's a matter of creativity. It's a matter of determining what I want in the best interest, not what will serve me alone, but what will serve the whole domestic space so that we can all thrive.
Thank you very much. I see Reverend Dr. Alabi says, Doc, fantastic delivery. My observation is because of some perceptions or perceived mind of some women leaders, they don't strike balance in certain boundaries. So, what is the best way? I think that's what she's been trying to address. Try to set a balance. So, but Doc will come mention say a few words about that. But I also want to ask, in addition, particularly at the workplace, in the Western world, there is this strict issues around sexual harassment and so on. And in our part of the world, especially Ghana, there is a bit of a laxity around how men and women, or men talk to women, or about women, about their dress, and so on and so forth. I mean, please, can you share a bit of thought on how a woman leader should handle this situation? Some will take this strict Western approach about, don't say I look nice or some things like that. Whereas in some places, it's just, even in the US and others, if you just tell a woman you are looking so good, there can be trouble, they can sue you. How do women handle these things? Because the cultures may be different.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. Coach, like you said, things are a bit different in our part of the world. We are more accommodating of compliments. We are more accommodating of people expressing their views as to how we look. And of course, in our cultural perspective, when somebody comments you, oh, I like your dress. Oh, your hairstyle looks good on you. Wow, you look different. Is it your hairstyle? And so on and so forth. I mean, these are comments to do with maybe what we are wearing and the effect. What I will have a problem with is when we begin to talk about the parts of the woman. For instance, oh, I love women with big breasts. And so when I see you, I'm happy. I mean, what has my breast got, the size of my breast, got to do with you being happy or sad? And so when it moves from maybe what we are wearing and how good it looks to description of our body parts, that one, I'll say the person is crossing the line. It's not right. It's not right. And for instance, telling me that, oh, when I hear your voice just puts me to sleep, and that kind of thing. That is going beyond uh, commenting on what the person is wearing, which they can change, the hairstyle, which can change, and so on and so forth. So for me, that's what we have to look out for. Anything bordering on familiarity. Anything bordering on the intimate should not be countenanced. It should not be welcome. And the same goes with how people even touch us. We should be concerned about that. We should be concerned about that. If I don't welcome your hug, I don't welcome it. And even a handshake, if I don't offer my hand, you don't have the right to shake hands with me. And so all these are the boundaries that we have to look out for, so that any comment that is inappropriate, especially if it goes beyond what I'm wearing, to how my body parts look and the effects, then I'll say it's unacceptable.
Great. As we are learning and learning and enjoying, I can see the time flying. We have a few minutes. I would like you to share with us the personal situations in which you have had to really draw the line on specific things, particularly in the workplace, where you have had to insist on certain things, and how you manage it without creating um, animosity, without creating conflict, and so forth with you, and especially the male subordinates when you are a woman boss.
Okay, thank you very much. So one of the first things I look out for is familiarity,
Hmm.
where people just assume that uh, they want to treat you in a certain way. Oh, after all, she's my sister. After all, we are co-workers and so on and so forth. Yes, much as we are a team, like I keep saying, respect is mutual. And so maybe by nature, because I'm an outspoken person, I don't have a problem telling you about what I don't like. And it doesn't matter whether you are a superior or a subordinate. I have that tendency to just tell you in a very respectful but firm manner that I don't like this. And it's something I'm known for. And so I normally don't have a problem with boundaries. I normally don't have a problem with boundaries. So I find myself playing the advocacy role a lot of the time. But what I do is that what is not welcome, I don't countenance. I let the person know about it as firmly as I can. And once I state it, that is it. I become very cordial, very nice, as courteous as I can. Without making the person feel that they are less in terms of whatever. No.
Mm-hmm.
An issue that is addressed, and I move on. It doesn't mean that you can repeat it, because when you
Mm-hmm.
do, maybe I increase the tempo of the vehemence when I'm talking about it. But
Yeah.
after that, we go on to work and relate to one another with no problem. So normally that's how I do it. I'm very outspoken about it. I'm assertive, and what I don't accept, I don't accept. And it doesn't matter who is involved. That's the thing about it, because I don't have a problem insisting on what I think should be the boundary. And once I make myself clear, I don't have any problem. And so normally what I guard against is to carry issues from the past into the present. Because when you do that, it can become one of the rigid boundaries that don't help. And so I make sure there's no ambiguity in stating my boundaries. And I make sure respect is mutual. I make sure respect is mutual. And if I don't know how you feel about something, I normally would like to understand. Are you comfortable if I ask you to do this or that? Because there are times when, even if you are dealing with somebody who is a subordinate, you want to be sure that they are comfortable with what they are doing. Because it may not be look out for. I will normally look out for the things that I don't want, and at the same time, I'm also looking out for what I will not be happy if it's done to me. And so I look out for the interests of the other person whilst protecting mine. At the same time, I'm very clear with my communication, very assertive, and then I show the utmost respect no matter who I'm dealing with.
Much firm, clear, respectful. Thank you so much. With our time is just run out on us, and I see we don't have any more questions. So at this point, I just want to give the space to Doctor to share her closing remarks. I see Sarah is here just to check if Sarah has a word. Otherwise, I give the space to Doc to share her closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Doc. I just want to say this is a great submission. I've learned a lot. I don't want to abuse the time, as you did mention to us that we have to really have time boundaries. So I'll just say thank you and over to you for your closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Doc, your final word.
Thank you very much. So what I want to leave with us all is that if you have problems setting boundaries, there's always help for you. Sometimes you need a professional to help you to determine what your boundaries should be. And sometimes the boundary setting goes with our personalities, our temperament, our expectations, the kind of experience we've had in the past, and all that. And so, what would be very comfortable boundaries for someone may not be the same for the other person. So, find out what kind of boundaries that you want. Find out what resonates with you. Find out the effects of people's behaviors and activities and actions and attitudes when they are interacting with you. So when you look at the effects on you, whether good or bad, then it helps you determine what those boundaries should be. And like I said, if you have difficulty, there's help available. Coach Sam's setup is there, and some of us are also available if you want to discuss this further. And I believe if you approach him, he can always link you to me. But setting boundaries are important. Setting boundaries is important. Determine those boundaries, communicate them clearly, and insist on them. Be assertive and be consistent. And it's okay to say no, and it's okay for others to say no to you. So once you expect others to respect your no, you also respect the no from others. Thank you very much for allowing me into your homes.
Thank you so very much, Doc. Thank you for those words. And as our time has run out on us, I just want to say once again, thank you, Doc. And thank you, everybody who joined us this evening. I see so many good comments. And until next week, when we bring you another leader with another great topic, we wish you all good night. God bless you. And let's find some space for God tomorrow as we go to church. Good night.
There is a popular saying in leadership
Thank
that
you.
if you think you are leading and there's nobody following you, you are only going on a walk. On this platform, you are going to learn principles of leadership. You are going to encounter different leaders. You are going to learn about how you can grow as a leader, how you can make an impact. My name is Samuel Eyim,
and I'm the host for the leadership platform. I am a leadership coach, a lawyer by profession, a John C. Maxwell certified coach. I have been in corporate life in senior positions for several years, and now I run the Center for Transformational Leadership, where we train and coach leaders to become better leaders. And I invite you to go on a journey with us as we discuss the subject of leadership in the coming weeks.
This and every Saturday, you have opportunity to ask questions, share your views on important leadership matters.